find me. Thank you for switching over to this other link. I set up the camera the wrong way. Guess I'm very rusty. But I'm glad I had set up this second link so you can see, so you can stroll with me. I'm hearing some commotion on the left-hand side. With my luck, I probably landed in the middle of a social protest. It would be lovely. I don't see your comments right now. Yes, there's Frank. Frank is here. Okay, great. So I see 18 people are here. Don't forget to like the camera, not the camera, the video, please, folks. It does help with YouTube. I am standing in the middle of a majestic place. Bonjour à tous. This is Vero. I'm happy to welcome you in my hometown of Toulouse. If you could give me a sound check and let me know that you can hear me okay, that would be wonderful. This majestic square, this Place du Capitole, is anchored by this incredible building, and this is called the Capitole. I can hear the police coming. Let's see what's going on here. Ooh, you're getting lots of street vibes, aren't you? Look at that. Here we go. All right. Now that they're done, I can thank you for confirming for the sound. I'm so excited to be doing this with you today. I was with family today. I didn't have much time to prepare for this, but I did scout a nice little route for us, and I hope you enjoy it. I have a little map even, so I don't get lost in the tiny little streets in the back of the neighborhood where we're headed. So the Capitole, you might be surprised to see that on the very top there, you see, it says Capitolium in Latin, which is not Hotel de Ville or Mairie for City Hall. Well, that's because back in the day in Toulouse, for over 600 years, in fact, you had some guys who were elected officials, and they acted as mayors, if you will. Today we would say mayors. And there were 8 of them. So you can see that those pink marble columns here, there's 8 of the columns. And so those Capitules, that was their name. So the Capitole is the house of the Capitule where they used to rule. Up until the French Revolution, this is where they would have worked and led the city. On the right-hand side, you see the theater, which they also call the opera. And on the left-hand side, you see over there is where the mayor, today we don't have Capitule anymore, we have mayors, and this is where he works, of course. You can see this typical architecture, which is brick, but also limestone, and that's quite unusual in Toulouse, unlike Paris. And when you see limestone in Toulouse, you know that the building is an important one, that they spent extra money on this building. Why? Because there are no limestone quarries, or hardly any, around Toulouse. Brick is easily found, or was easily found, but not limestone. So this building clearly sends a message, right? On the plaza around me, you see a gigantic, I'd have to step back so you can see it, star of sorts, which is known as the symbol of Occitania, the name of this region. Toulouse is the capital. It's also referred to as La Croix du Languedoc, the Languedoc cross. If I step back, you might be able to see it a little better. And the interesting thing about this one is that you have all the zodiac signs at each end, you see? So mine, since I am Pisces, is right about here. And the Leo, since I'm Leo rising, is on the other side. So this is quite an impressive square. And if you've been in Toulouse before, you know that this is where the locals celebrate all happy events, especially sports victories, rugby victories with the Stade Toulousain, crowds and crowds, or election results. People will be packed here. And there's also markets here, a lot of events, craft markets. So this is where locals like to meet, essentially. Bonjour, if you just joined me, my name is Vero, Veronique, and because you are patrons, you probably already know who I am. And Lisa, I know you've been here before. Look at what they did. I think they did this for shade in the summer, because it gets really hot in Toulouse in the summer. And you see now with the wind, they make that nice sound. So locals like to come here, and they like to have a drink or more at one of the many brasseries that you see under those arches or arcades in the back there, the brick arcades. And if you walk under those arches, it's protected. They have panels that tell you the history of the city of Toulouse right from the beginning. Our local artists have done that, so it's really interesting. So you can see that the history of the city is really important here. But today I thought I would show you neighborhoods that are not quite as majestic as this one. It seems fitting to start here, of course, because this is the famous Place du Capitole with its luxury hotels around it. But my plan is to take you to other places, and I hope that we don't lose the signal, because I have now used up the second link I had set up. So I will do my best. If we were to lose the signal, I guess my only option will be to head over to La Bande de Vero, our private Facebook group, and I will continue the live stream there, because I don't have any more links ready for this event. Maybe I should have done 3 instead of 2. Haha. Fingers crossed, we will be okay. So you see, this hotel is a reference to the opera, and again, the opera or the theater would be in this building here. There is a gorgeous room in the middle of the building, la Salle des Illustres, the room of the illustrious. It stands right where the flags are here. It's quite impressive. It looks like Versailles in there. I've been there a few times. It's a little chilly, Kat. It was 17 Celsius earlier, which is the low 60s, but for some reason the wind has picked up and now it feels a little chillier. I'm wearing a leather jacket. In fact, now is a good time to say hello. Voila, you can see I have a windswept look, and I'm wearing my leather jacket because yes, it is a little chilly actually. So I'm leaving the Capitole, la Place du Capitole behind me, and I'm going to take you on a stroll through the streets of Toulouse and show you some of my favorite streets and small squares, because Toulouse is a city of tiny little squares and there's so much to see here. So I'm going to switch back and show you more of this great city. You notice already that the architecture is quite different from Paris, though in sections some of the buildings, like the one facing us, might remind you of Paris a little bit. And that's because in the 19th century, the second half of the 19th century, when Baron Haussmann and Napoleon III were busy remodeling Paris, a lot of cities in France, big cities, powerful cities like Toulouse or Lyon, also did their own version of the 19th century remodel. And they were inspired by Paris, but you see a lot of local touches as well. Oh, thanks, Kat. That's very nice of you. All right, my goal is to take you through this street, which is called, cute name, see the sign here, Rue de la Pomme, Apple Street, Rue de la Pomme. 2 things to notice here. The second sign is written in the Occitan language. That's something they started doing about 20 years ago. The Occitan language was, of course, the local language here a long time ago, but 20 years ago there was a return to the roots, so to speak, and now all the street plaques are translated in both languages. That happens throughout southern France. And the other thing to notice is the apple. You see the 3 red little dots next to it? That's my favorite street artist. His name is Mifamosa, and he is based in Orléans, and I tend to only share his work on Instagram because he's got a great sense of humor when he illustrates street names. And I've spotted a few here, so I know he's been here. So like I was saying, some Haussmannian vibes here from the 19th century, but also some really local touches in terms of the railings of the balconies, for example. Some of them look a little bit like lace. They are very delicate, much different from what you will see in Paris. So let's walk up Rue de la Pomme for a little while, and fingers crossed the live streaming gods are with us today. Oh, there was a question, I missed it. Pomme d'or, is that golden apple? Yeah, it sounds like it might mean, or would be like an old spelling for gold, doesn't it? My grandmother used to speak a version of the Occitan language, but she's long gone and I unfortunately don't speak it. So I know a few words and expressions, and that's about it. So the goal on this stroll is to introduce some of you to Toulouse. the history of Toulouse a little bit because it's complex, it's a very old city, but also to share some street vibes because I know this is one of your favorite things to do, even more so than history, than hearing about history. And I want to demonstrate that Toulouse is such a great walkable city. You can see that a lot of these streets are practically pedestrian friendly. I mean, they are pedestrian friendly and practically only for pedestrians. You do see a few cars, bikes, more and more bikes in Toulouse. There's a lot of construction. And look, just like in Paris, if you look at the facades, you can see different layers of history and definitely the centuries that went by. We are in the historic heart of Toulouse here. Back in the day, this area would have been surrounded by walls. This was a medieval town. And so over time, of course, a lot of the facades evolved, 17th, 18th century and the 19th century. But look, on the left-hand side here, you have a half-timbered home that's been beautifully restored or renovated the way it probably was a long, long time ago. You see? And instead of using stucco between or wood they would have used mud and straw between the wood beams in the Middle Ages. Here they've used bricks, a little bit like what they do in my city in Tours. So now we're about to cross. You see, this is the bike rental system. Every city has one now. So my favorite color, orange. They are pink and orange here, which is kind of cool. Bonjour les amis, welcome if you just joined us. Glad you found us. I messed up the first link, so we had to use the second one. We are crossing what was essentially, when it was created, the street, the local Champs-Élysées. So this is called the Rue Alsace-Lorraine. It's pedestrian friendly. And it's lined, I think every French city has one. It's a big street, typically for pedestrians, and it's lined with a lot of beautiful buildings, but also a lot of stores and typically chain stores. So this was built in the 19th century, right about the time Paris was getting modernized as well. And it's called Rue Alsace-Lorraine, like the region Alsace-Lorraine in northeastern France. There's a giant Monoprix on the left-hand side. You see this brick building, that's Monoprix, it's huge. So it's a long street, it crosses all of Toulouse. I am going to keep walking on Rue de la Pomme, the Apple Street. The bike almost ran me over. And like I said, I didn't have much time. I came here to see my family. This is an area, well, this is the town where I was born a long time ago. And my aunt and cousins lived here for years, for decades. My grandparents as well. Now they're all gone except for my cousin. My aunt, who is my favorite aunt, passed away this summer while I was on tour at the age of 97. So it's very special to me to be back here. I had planned this trip to come and say goodbye to her, but she left before I had a chance to do that. So this week I went to the small town 30 minutes south of Toulouse, L'Île Jourdain, where my grandparents, my aunt used to live. And I spent time there with my cousin. It was very special. Toulouse is a big city. It's the fourth largest city in France population-wise. It's one of the most dynamic and fastest growing cities in France. Thank you for the messages. Toulouse has over 500,000 people now, and it's growing still. Over 100,000 students are here. Extremely lively place. Lots of bars. Got to pick your place carefully if you stay here long term or if you live here, because it's a lively town. Of course, Airbus Industries is headquartered here. All the Airbus contractors are here as well. And it does attract a lot of people. There's a big, healthy expat community as well. It's not the small provincial town that it was back in the day when we lived in the area with my family, my grandparents, etc. It's changed a lot. It's still beautiful though, and it definitely has its own vibe. Welcome friends, if you just joined. Once again, we are walking in Toulouse, and I'm following a street called Apple Street, la Rue de la Pomme. I know you like to know what is going on, and here I have a choice. You see this red brick building, there's an intersection, And I'm just going to take a shortcut here on the left. It's not really a shortcut. I want to show you one of my favorite squares. It's not a small one, but it is one that I really like. And then we'll go back to the main street. It's called La Place Saint-Georges. Saint George, who was the saint of medieval knights. They used to torture or execute people actually in the Middle Ages on this square. But today it's just a fabulous square. It's lined with restaurants and bars because it's after 6 p.m. now, so it's apéro time. I can hear the sound of conversations around me, just like that. And this is where this week, I don't know if you saw it on Instagram and Facebook, I captured a photo of a Wallace fountain, which stands right in the middle of the square over there, in front of that red brick building that glows in the sun. So I'm going to just get close here so you can appreciate the reason they call Toulouse the Pink City. It's because of the red tiles on the rooftops and also all the bricks on the facades. And right behind those people is my Wallace fountain. And guess what? They are all over France, and they are originals, just like the ones Sir Wallace, the philanthropist, the English philanthropist, donated to Paris after the War of 1870, when Paris was besieged and people stopped drinking water because all the aqueducts had been blown up by Prussia. And so he essentially made donations, about 50 fountains, just like this one, that were supposed to convince Parisians to give up their wine and start drinking water again. So I did check it out. It has a date. It has the name of the architect, Le Bourg, which is the same as in Paris, and it also has a date, which is 1872. So look at this lovely square, lots of people here. And across from me, past those umbrellas, is an unassuming little green awning. It's called Chez Émile. And Chez Émile is one of the best places to have a cassoulet. You know, that dish from southwestern France, big stew with meat and beans, bacon, some vegetables. And you have 3 cities in southwestern France competing for the prize of the best cassoulet. You have Toulouse, that makes it a certain way, with duck, of course. Duck is in everything. You have Castelnaudary, and you have Carcassonne. So if you come to Toulouse and you want a good place to sample a cassoulet, come to Chez Émile. I'm not going to get closer. Actually, you see it. It's right there. You see the green awning there? It says Émile. And the chef is really good. So it's quite well known. So this is Place Saint-Georges, one of the, I'd say, medium-sized squares here, compared to the big one where we started, La Place du Capitole. Oh, thank you. I did have my nails painted for fun since I was on vacation. So here, again, a series of facades, and you can see all the different styles. You have some half-timbered homes. You have facades that were updated later on through the centuries. And you can peel back the layers of history just like you do in Paris or in any other city. Toulouse has fascinating history, in fact. So it's pretty good. Oui, oui. Merci, merci. Vous voulez dire bonjour? Bonjour monsieur. Vous vous appelez comment? Raoul, enchanté. Moi c'est Véronique. C'est mes amis américains sur YouTube. Je leur fais visiter la ville.
Ah, ok, bonne visite.
Merci, c'est gentil. Nice guy. All right, sorry guys for this little aparté. Look at this one. This one has the beams on the bottom, and then it has the stucco on the top. And of course, as you walk around cities like that, you can kind of tell where the beams were. Even if the stucco's left, you just know that this house at one point in time had half-timbered all over its facade. And of course, it's evolved. All right, so you saw Place Saint-Georges, which is a pretty well-known square here. And you do have a massive fountain here. It's not as old as it looks. And so what I'd like to do is take you back to a street called Rue des Arts, Street of the Arts. It's like a maze, okay? So when you walk around Toulouse, you need to go behind the Capitol building, behind the City Hall, the wrong side of the street here. Careful. Voilà. When you go behind the city hall, the Capitol, there is a dungeon that was erected in the Renaissance in the 16th century. And inside that dungeon is the tourist office. So make sure to pick up a map there and then kind of get lost in the streets in Toulouse, because there are so many small streets, and it's a maze. It's very confusing. But the good news is at some point you're going to reach the river, so you're not going to get really lost, okay? The Garonne River, where I took you on Facebook earlier this week. So now we are on Rue des Arts. That's the one we're crossing here. And Rue des Arts happens to be around a massive complex, the Museum of Fine Arts of Toulouse, which is a former convent. It's called the Couvent des Augustins. And it is the Musée des Augustins. Very, very old, as you can imagine, typical southern architecture. This is the Gothic style made in southwestern France. There's a church, there are several buildings, and there is especially a cloister that you want to see absolutely when you come here. The problem is it's been closed for a while now due to extensive restoration. Toulouse is in the process of restoring and protecting their heritage, and they are working on a lot of those buildings. But I have seen it in the past, and that cloister is magnificent. The Museum of Fine Arts, les Augustins, as they say locally here. And definitely very southern architecture. The church, for example, doesn't have a transept. Look at this tower. You see the mix of different colors for the brick? It's quieter here. One thing I noticed is the number of mopeds everywhere, and they are really loud. Is Bob leaving? I see a message saying au revoir, Bob. I guess he has to go. Well, au revoir, Bob. And thanks for being here, friends. This is a good turnout for a weekday. And I'm sure our friends will catch the replay later. So, in case I haven't mentioned this, Toulouse is shopping heaven. There are so many boutiques everywhere, not just chain stores, but lots of boutiques. And one thing they have that I really envy is a lot of stationery stores. Like this is a librairie, which is a bookstore, but they also have a lot of stores that sell fine papers and pens, and I love those stores. I don't know about you, but so les papeteries in French, papeterie, is what they have here, and a lot of them. Oh, look at this lovely light. So now we are about to cross. So see, this is where you would enter the museum, behind that fence. So once they take that off, you'll be able to return. It's massive. But this is a big street called Rue de Metz, like the city of Metz, M-E-T-Z. And this street is undergoing a major transformation. They're planting trees. They are creating bike lanes. And locals are furious because, well, we're lucky, so I think work has just stopped for the day, but there is a sheer amount of dust and noise all day long along the street, Rue de Metz. And so I'm going to cross here before getting run over. And if I turn around, you should be able to see this entire building here. You see from the left to the right is the Museum of Fine Arts, les Augustins I just mentioned, with the tower I just showed you. Look at the size of this place. Again, the cloister is a must-see if you come here. So this street, Rue de Metz, if you followed it in this direction, would take you all the way to the Garonne River, the main river in the area. But for now, I'm following the Rue des Arts, the same street of the arts, lots of boutiques everywhere. Great shopping in Toulouse if someone's into shopping. I see you've mentioned the violets. This is one of the things Toulouse is famous for. There are quite a few stores here that sell products made with that pretty little flower. The legend says it originally came from Italy with a soldier fighting for Napoleon III, who brought it back for his beloved. And they started growing it in the area in the 19th century. It became extremely successful. They would grow it, and they still do, between November and March, and sell it all over Europe. And so now they sell all kinds of products made with violets, from candy to syrups to cosmetics to fragrances. That purple flower is everywhere. And now the treat is we're entering a quieter section. Look at that. Look at these beautiful buildings. So we are crossing a street, you see the name across from me, Rue Croix-Baragnon. There used to be a cross here, and Baragnon, I think, was the name of a family who lived here in the Middle Ages. You are in the middle of what they would call here the Golden Triangle. The real estate in this neighborhood, right behind the St. Stephen's Cathedral, is some of the most expensive in Toulouse. So you will see high-end shops, you will see beautiful facades. And here's an example. They have restored this one beautifully here. See the half-timbered look? Great restoration. And then, of course, surrounded by the other ones, which are brick or other styles as well, but mostly with brick. So this street with the gorgeous stores is the one that takes you to the cathedral you see in the distance, St. Stephen's Cathedral. So if you're looking for a nice, fancy, bourgeois place to live in Toulouse, and if you're really willing to invest, because it's pretty steep, look for something in these parts around St. Stephen's. I'm just going to stop here and show you a store on the left called Café di Costanzo. I came here yesterday because a friend introduced me to a great restaurant that served their coffee in town, and I'll be blogging about that restaurant or writing about it. So I like this coffee. This is a great store, first of all. They sell everything you need to make coffee, including, you see all these themed cups and mugs from Toulouse. But all the machines you need, all the grains, they have different blends. But the reason I bought something here was because they roast those beans in the small town 30 minutes south of Toulouse, where my family used to live, where I was yesterday with my cousin, which is called l'Île Jourdain. So it's really local. And I think I have found my brother's Christmas gift, because he's a big coffee drinker, and he's going to love that the coffee I'm going to get him comes from here. So I'll get him a selection. And you can see that in 2021, they won the best espresso blend in France. The prize of the best espresso blend in France. And in France, we don't say espresso, we say expresso or express. That's why it's spelled like this. More elegant facades. Might as well show them to you while I can. And again, some pretty high-end stores here. There is a really nice boulangerie nearby. No, my brother's not watching. I didn't send him the link, so he won't know. But I'm excited about that. Typically, I get him wine, so I could get him a nice wine from this area, but I think the cathedral's a little blurry in the back there, but it's going to get in focus. Here is a nice pâtisserie, La Pâtisserie Comté. Toulouse has a lot of fine pastry shops, lots and lots of them, where they sell local specialties. And it's the end of the day, so I'm expecting this place to be a little empty. I think they have the regular macaron and smaller cakes. And look, here are some of the violet flavored products. You see they have, in particular, the candied, on the right-hand side in the big jar, the candied flowers. It's a delicacy. They actually, it's all crystallized in sugar, and you can use it in desserts. You can serve it with dessert, with coffee. So it's a big deal here, the violet. In a second, you'll see the cathedral better. We're getting closer. But see, this street is really a fancy street. So if you're here, this is some of the nicest shops you can find in Toulouse. So I've told you about how big the population is now. It's a university town, one of the oldest in France, of course. It's been built and rebuilt several times because there was a major fire way before the London fire. I think London was 1666 and Toulouse burned down at the end of the 100 Years' War in the late 15th century. Here is St. Stephen's ahead of us. This is Comtesse du Barry, which is a chain. They sell foie gras, among other fine things. But they also have some local wines. Southwestern France wine featured the famous Madiran wines. And you can see the grape is referred to as Tana and Cabernet Franc, which of course you all know, especially if you've traveled with me, that We don't pronounce the C at the end of Franc, so it's Cabernet Franc, and Tana, which is a grape that's used around here. All right, let's try and see this cathedral a little bit. And then we will be tackling the challenging streets, and that's when I'm hoping the signal will hold on. Yes, the summer, I was discussing the weather in Toulouse with my cousins at their house yesterday. They do have air conditioning. They have a little pool and they have air conditioning, and my cousin's wife was telling me that it's getting hotter and hotter. And the difference is now that, it goes up routinely to 37, 38 Celsius in the summer. And the difference with before is that now it will last for several days, sometimes over a week, and it doesn't cool off at night. So she was saying that air conditioning is going to become a necessity in these parts, like in other parts of southern France, of course, in Provence. Also mosquitoes and bugs. She said that was really a problem, and it's really hard to enjoy your yard at night because you get eaten alive by mosquitoes, and there's going to be a lot of pressure from mayors to start acting on those because more and more people are complaining about this. So St. Stephen's Cathedral, built and rebuilt over time like most of them, but you can see this is a very different style for the time, the Gothic style you would see in the northern part of France. It is typically the meridional or southern style, all made of brick once again. There is a bell tower and a clock tower. In its current form, it was probably started around the 13th century, and then they upgraded it over time. But right in front of us here is a fountain that happens to be the oldest fountain in town, I believe. It dates back to the 16th century, the Renaissance. And behind it is the plaza outside the cathedral, which they are also working on, planting trees, developing. There's going to be more bike lanes on this side here on the street. So like I said, Toulouse is a bit of a giant construction site right now. It didn't bother me so much, but locals must be really inconvenienced like Parisians were before the Olympic Games. So check this out. I mean, when you think that this thing was built in the 1500s, it's pretty impressive. I hope you're having a good time and enjoying yourselves. I'm trying to share what I see along the way. I love, of course, old facades, and one of my big things in France is to spot what the facades, what the stores were before, what they are today. So I can see that this building here on the left, you see how it says right above the windows, aux six sœurs, at the Six Sisters, and it was une librairie, which is a bookstore. So clearly today it's become a fancy chocolatier and a fancy wine shop, it looks like, but they have left the original sign, maybe and possibly because it is protected and they cannot change it. But it's interesting to see how cities evolve. At least the new stores are not a dumb chain store, something you see everywhere, which is nice. Aux six sœurs, so there must have been six sisters owning this place here. I'm looking at my map to make sure I take the right turn. I think we're going to go in this street here. And this is where my streets are getting smaller, and hopefully the signal is going to stay with us. One last peek at the cathedral. I stepped in, it's beautiful inside. There's quite a few religious buildings to visit in Toulouse, all over the historic center. And because they are so different, I think you will enjoy them. So here we have La Rue Pierre de Fermat. You see the name on the left-hand side. And I'm going to go down that street and then, oh yes, because this takes us to a couple of small squares. And I wanted you to see also the small squares. What is this? This is fancy chocolate, look at that. So this is called Criollo chocolate, and I know it's a good brand because I had done a live stream with my friend Jessica, who runs Taste of Toulouse, a couple years ago, and she had taken us to another stores of theirs. So this is your fancy chocolate, okay? Look at that. They're also beautiful. The Diplomat, oh, very nice. Okay, so Criollo, make a note of that if you come to Toulouse. They have special, I think they have at least 2 or 3 shops here. And here we are, after 6 p.m., peaceful. So of course, the big wealth of this city didn't come from the violet trade in the 19th century. It came way before that. It came in the 16th century when they were doing trade with other countries, and they figured out that there was a plant called the pastel, P-A-S-T-E-L, and growing and washing and drying those flowers and harvesting them was a lot of work. But the city became enormously popular and successful thanks to it as early as the 1500s. And it was a dye, so you used it to dye fabrics. And it went on for a couple of centuries. And so as a result, a lot of merchants who traded this pastel built what we would call today hôtel particulier, the private mansions. So whenever you walk around Toulouse, if you have a chance to peek behind one of the big doors, you should try and do it. Because typically, like look at the one on the right here, the height of this door, typically there's a courtyard where the carriages could go in, and then you have sometimes a garden, just like in Paris when you can peek inside. This one looks like it needs a little bit of TLC, but back in the day it might have belonged to one of those pastel merchants. And an entire bourgeoisie was born around that trade in the 16th century, and that brought a lot of prosperity to Toulouse. And then eventually, pastel was overshadowed by indigo that had come from other lands, and it disappeared gradually. And so, of course, Toulouse had to find other ways of making money, I suppose. I'm bringing you here because there's a lovely little square here. Just a fountain, it's very small, but just to illustrate how you have all these hidden squares all around the city. I'm gonna cross here and look at these facades. There's a statue. I think I read that there was an elm tree in the middle of this square, and they've replaced it eventually with this statue. And I think this is a really nice view. Look at that. See, they can be quite creative with the facades. The brick can be mixed with stone or stucco, depending. The gurgling fountain, isn't that what we say? So this is called La Place Sainte-Scarbe. And so somewhere around here would have been a tree, I guess, an elm tree. But now there's this cute little fountain here. And you have two restaurants. This one says, Le monde est à nous, the world is ours. And this one is l'Occitanie, which is a play on words with Occitanie, of course, the name of the region. And as I mentioned, peeking through gates. I'm not going to walk in because I don't want to lose the signal, but this is the type of courtyard you could see. You see? Look at that. So it's pretty dark in there, but you have an entire courtyard surrounded by more buildings. And on the right-hand side, a peaceful street. Quite lovely. All right, so here's the challenging part. I want to take you to another square, and this is where the street gets really small. Well, even if we get cut off, you've seen some of Toulouse already, so I'm happy about that. Fingers crossed. A different sun shines in France. I'm not sure about that, but I think it's more of a special time of day now. It's the golden hour, as they say. So here is Rue Merlane, and I discovered the street the other day walking around, and it looks so, to me, it looks more like the Toulouse where I used to walk with my family. I'm gonna walk fast in case the signal drops. If it drops, I'll see you in our private Facebook group to finish this, okay? La Bande de Vero. I'm gonna walk fast here. But this is more the Toulouse I remember when I was with my family a long time ago and we walked here on Sundays. This was not the fancy or gentrified Toulouse like some sections we've seen. You see, some of the buildings need work. There's no one around. The streets are super quiet. We just crossed La Rue des Trois Banquets, the street of the three banquets. I mean, look at this. Look at the height of that wall coming on us on the left. There's probably a courtyard in there as well. I love, love, love this street, don't you? Look at that. I love this street. This screams at Southern France. If you hit me on the head and I passed out and I walk up right here, I would know I am in Southern France. I may not know it's Toulouse, but I would know it's Southern France. Okay, so far so good. Let's keep going. Almost there. I'm glad you like it too. And look how quiet it is. It's such a treat today with mass tourism and so many crowded places. Such a treat to be in big cities like Toulouse and not have crowds like this. This is wonderful. Okay, check this out. This is my little square here. I'm gonna stand here. So you have this statue in front of a gorgeous building, probably a 19th century building. You see the intricate, looks like lace, the railings. You see? And look at the street on the side here. Now you notice this pale blue color on the shutters. Now a lot of that color was inspired by that trade, the pastel trade, which, by the way, survives today, not so much as a dyeing thing, though I did buy myself a scarf at the pastel store in town, but they also use them for cosmetics. It's actually very good for cosmetics. And a lot of people choose to paint their shutters in that color. Here's a close-up here, you can see, with the dog. Look at the color, you see? It's pretty blue. So we're going to stream through La Rue du Canard, the Duck Street. And look, this is my friend Mi Famosa again. I see the three little dots on the right-hand side of the duck. So it means it's been here. I know, I'm glad you enjoy discovering special places. This is easy to get to, fairly easy to get to from Paris. The only problem with Toulouse, and that's one of the reasons I didn't choose to settle down here in my hometown again, is because I found it was a little away, a little far from Paris, and I was afraid it'd be too far to take care of my parents, and also I wasn't sure that some of my clients or patrons would come and see me down here. The train takes a little over 4 hours, and the problem is currently it stops in Bordeaux, which sounds rather inefficient. But they have big plans in the next few years to have a more direct connection to Paris. And then I think Toulouse is going to grow even faster. It's going to get very attractive. Where is Jeanne? Jeanne is not here. Jeanne is at home, but I will show you later. I'll take a picture of something I got here when it was raining 2 days ago to ensure that Jeanne would always be with me on all my trips now. I found the cutest umbrella, and it's got a duck. The handle is actually a duck. So I will show it to you. We are crossing another big street here, La Rue du Languedoc, the Languedoc Street. And of course you know that Languedoc is the name of an entire region that's part of Occitanie, but it's also the name of a language that used to be spoken in the southern part of France. For a long time you had, that's a big street, see? You can tell these streets were carved out in the 19th century, just like in Paris, and they literally tore through the old medieval neighborhoods that Toulouse had, just like they did in Paris in the Latin Quarter and everywhere else. So the Languedoc was spoken in southern France. The Langue d'Oil, O-I-L, was spoken in northern France, and because the kings were based in northern France, eventually the Langue d'Oil became the French language. But here in the south, they're very proud of their roots, and they still speak, a lot of people still speak the Languedoc. And like I mentioned, it's still the name of an area anyway. So We are almost finished with our walk. We've been going for 45 minutes. This is exciting. Hope you've enjoyed it. But I wanted to take you back to a section where I did film a video a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. It's called Les Carmes, C-A-R-M-E-S. Les Carmes, from the Carmelites that used to be here. The building on the left doesn't look so good. It looks like a big parking lot. And underneath is one of Toulouse's most popular food markets, Les Marchés des Carmes. So of course at this time it's closed. But if you come here in the morning, it's a lively scene. The biggest one is not in this section. It's called Victor Hugo. So Toulouse has at least 2 huge covered food markets, and you know how much I love those. Les Carmes is anchored by that market you see on the left. But essentially, it is it's an old, or very old medieval neighborhood, and it is anchored by the market, and lots of restaurants and bars are here. So quite loud and lively at night. You see some young people there having apéro on the left. There are streets and streets of beautiful old buildings and people having lunch, dinner at night. This is a great wine shop called Maison Sarment. If you want to do wine tasting, you can eat here. But if you want to do wine tasting, they also do this, and they know their stuff. They're super friendly. So highly recommend Maison Sarment. Still early, of course, so nobody's here. So let me switch things around. Voila. I hope you've enjoyed this stroll in my city back in the day. My hometown, Toulouse. It's been really fun to show you around and show you that it's not just a big city, but it also has a lot of little hidden corners, a lot of history. And okay, I'm trying to watch my step here. So behind me, what you see is the parking lot behind me. But if I do this, if I do this behind me, you have one of these streets where all the restaurants are. And because I have filmed this video in the past, I'm not going to do that now, because I did take viewers around this neighborhood already. So you can go back to that video. I might link it in the description anyway. But I want to say thank you for joining me today, my dear patrons. Thank you for your continued support. I will try and keep doing these now and then when I can, before I'm heading back to Tours soon. Don't forget to like the video. It does make a difference with the algorithm. I'm going to switch around so you can see just a tiny little bit of Les Carmes, C-A-R-M-E-S. This is la rue des Filatiers. And pretty soon, in about an hour or less, it's going to be filled with apéro, the apéro crowd. It's just starting now, but it's going to get a lot livelier and busier. So thank you for following me today. I'm glad it all worked out fine. And I guess I'll say à bientôt, les amis. Take care. Au revoir.